Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let me tell you about the most expensive physics lesson ever taught in the woods. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Don't come back until they're all in the fridge. You got it, boss. This happened about 40 years ago during one of our annual family camping trips. We had a pop-up camper, the kind that folded down into a neat little trailer for towing, but expanded out into what felt like a mini cabin once we set up. It came equipped with a tiny built-in fridge, a small sink, and a 2-burner stovetop. In my kid brain, it was the height of luxury for roughing it. So we're getting packed up, preparing to hit the road. My dad handed me a 12-pack of long-neck glass beer bottles, back when all beer bottles were glass and weighed as much as a bowling ball. He said, "Put these beers in the fridge." No further instructions, just that. So I trotted over to the camper and opened up the little fridge, which, for context, was approximately the size of a microwave, maybe smaller. I tried to load the beers in. I stood them all upright at first, which to me seemed like the most sensible configuration. But physics being what it is, all 12 weren't going to fit that way. I used every inch of the space, the main compartment, the little condiment slots on the door, the awkward corner near the back. I double-checked that the door would close, that nothing would fall out when opened. Mission accomplished. Or so I thought. I returned to my dad and gave my report. They didn't all fit, but the rest are safe and the door closes fine. Big mistake. He got irritated. No, actually angry, like I'd personally failed him in some sacred rite of camping preparation. Go back and put all the beers in the fridge. Don't come back until you've got them all in there. I was maybe 10 years old. I wasn't going to argue, so I went back to the camper with the solemn purpose of solving this adult man geometry problem. Fit 12 bulky glass bottles into a shoebox-sized fridge designed to hold 3 yogurts and a stick of butter. I tried laying them sideways. No good. They rolled. I stacked them. Unstable. Tried alternating upside-down and right-side-up bottles. Still a mess. Everything slid around the moment I moved the fridge door even a little. I spent a good while in there, puzzling it out. I've always liked puzzles and math, and at that point I was treating it like a Tetris championship. But no matter what I tried, there was just no stable way to fit all 12 bottles and still open the door without triggering a glass avalanche. I walked back out, calmly and rationally explained the situation, said it couldn't be done without risking a crash of epic proportions. Cue rage. Again. In retrospect, I wish I'd just stashed the extra bottles in a cabinet or under a cushion, declared victory, and moved on. Heck, maybe even cracked one open just for spite. But I was a kid, and I was taking orders, literally. So back I went. This time I was determined to succeed, so I opted for the most precarious Jenga tower of beer you can imagine. I balanced, wedged, crammed, tilted, and shifted until, slam, I managed to close the fridge door just in time to keep the whole thing from toppling. It was sealed, and by the letter of the law, all 12 bottles were now inside the fridge. We hit the road. Now here's the thing, pop-up campers don't ride smooth. Every bump, swerve, or pothole adds momentum to whatever's stored inside. And we hadn't leveled the camper properly when we finally parked at our site, so gravity wasn't exactly my friend. Later, when someone, I think it was my dad, went to grab a cold one, he popped the latch and opened the fridge door. Instantly, chaos. The beers launched themselves forward like a tidal wave of rolling glass and fermented revenge. They spilled from the fridge in a roaring cascade, bouncing off the interior and diving out the open camper door like salmon leaping upstream, if salmon shattered on impact and made everything smell like a dive bar. My dad, to his credit, tried to salvage what he could. He caught a couple midair, one in each hand, like a grizzly snatching dinner out of the river, but the rest smashed spectacularly on the rocks outside. Glass and beer everywhere. I braced myself for the yelling, braced hard. But to my surprise, nothing. Not a word. Apparently the real crime was daring to say they don't fit. The actual loss of 2/3 of the supply didn't carry the same weight as questioning the instructions in the first place. As an adult, I still laugh about it, the great beer flood of our family camping trip. All that effort, all that rage, just to end up with fewer beers and a camper that reeked like a frat house. But hey, at least I followed instructions. Every single one. I was imagining only half-intact beer bottles, those that could fit. And as for the rest, several smashed bottles with shards of broken glass and puddles of beer everywhere in the fridge. But that would have been way too harsh. And our second story. Claim denied: how my mom fought bureaucracy with bureaucracy. My parents recently had a house fire. Thankfully, it wasn't their fault and no one was hurt, but the damage was extensive. While the house itself didn't completely burn to the ground, this becomes important later, the heat, smoke, and structural compromise rendered it a total loss for all practical purposes. Everything had to go. The home was no longer habitable, and rebuilding would take months. Fortunately, my parents are the responsible plan-ahead type. They had excellent replacement value homeowners insurance, and while the road ahead would be long, stressful, and filled with paperwork, they were in as good of a position as anyone could be after a disaster like that. Among the many services they had subscribed to over the years was an appliance service plan. You know, the kind they pay a monthly fee, and in return, the company covers nearly every appliance in the house, sending someone out to inspect, repair, or even replace a broken one. Their plan was comprehensive: kitchen appliances, washer and dryer, the deep freezer in the basement, the second fridge in the mudroom, everything. But now that the house was unlivable, they naturally called the appliance company to cancel the service and asked whether they could get a prorated refund for the rest of the month. After all, they couldn't live there, couldn't use the appliances, and wouldn't be needing any of the plan's benefits. The customer service rep wasn't having it. "We don't prorate mid-cycle," the rep said flatly, "and I'm afraid we also can't cancel until after the next billing cycle either. So you'll still be charged for the full current month and the next one." So no refund, no cancellation, just 2 more months of paying for a service they couldn't use. My mom, already up to her ears in insurance adjusters, temporary housing arrangements, and fire recovery logistics, took a deep breath. "I understand you can't prorate this month," she said calmly, "but can you at least cancel the service starting next month, given our situation? Our house is uninhabitable." That's where the rep got snippy. "Well, I'd be happy to cancel it right now if that's what you really want," the rep said in that smug customer service voice, "but you'll still be responsible for paying through the next month regardless." Now, I've known my mom for a long time. She's sweet, polite, but if you try to get cute with her, you're in for it. "Okay," she said evenly, "then we won't cancel. Please keep the service active. And since we're covered through next month, I'd like to file a claim on every appliance in the house." There was silence. "You'd like to file a claim?" "Yes," my mom said. "The appliances weren't destroyed by fire. The house is damaged, but the appliances are still there. Since our service is active, please go ahead and schedule a tech to inspect and service every covered appliance. Refrigerator, stove, dishwasher, microwave, washer, dryer, freezer, mudroom, fridge, all of them." Another long pause. Then the rep put her on hold. A few minutes later, a supervisor came on the line. Funny how that works. "Hello, ma'am. Due to those circumstances, we're happy to make an exception and cancel the plan immediately. You won't be charged for next month." "Thank you," my mom said, sweet as pie. Now, I know some people might be thinking she should have gone through with it, made them send a tech to a fire-damaged house just to waste their time. But that's not how my parents operate. They got what they originally asked for, a cancellation with no extra charges. Following through with the malicious compliance would have taken extra time, energy, and maybe a bit of their integrity just for a spiteful little win. Besides, their home insurance was already covering all the appliances. There was no financial benefit to following through. Just a moral victory they didn't need to claim. Sometimes the most satisfying outcome is watching someone scramble to fix their mistake the moment they realize you've outmaneuvered them with nothing but logic, calm persistence, and just enough pressure to crack the script. And that's exactly what my mom did. And our last story. Karen wanted our shed gone. I live with my mom. She's a quiet woman, retired, drinks chamomile tea at 3 p.m. sharp, and wouldn't so much as raise her voice at a mosquito. She tends her little garden, feeds the birds, and basically minds her business harder than anyone I know. A few months ago, this new neighbor moves in. Enter Karen. Middle-aged, Botox to oblivion, drives an SUV the size of a tank, and clearly believes the cul-de-sac should be renamed after her. Within a week, she's giving my mom dirty looks over the fence. Within 2, she's knocking on the door uninvited. "Excuse me, is that shed in your backyard permitted? It looks illegal, and it's obstructing my view." Mom blinked at her like she had two heads. Shed's been there for 15 years. Well, I'm going to report it, Karen huffed. It doesn't look up to code. I have friends in the city. And wouldn't you know it, 3 days later, an inspector shows up, clipboard, hard hat, the whole routine. He checks the structure, nods, checks some papers, nods again, and leaves. Doesn't say a single word. We watched him go. Karen, meanwhile, stood on her patio like a suburban queen overseeing her realm, arms crossed and smiling like she'd just won a war. She really thought she did something, I muttered to my mom. Don't worry, I got this. So I did what any quiet but petty child of a quiet but wronged woman would do. I started digging. That pool Karen was always bragging about, the one she just had installed, sparkling blue with fancy LED lights and a waterfall, yeah, it turns out it was built 6 inches from our property line. And worse, it sat directly on top of a utility easement, clearly marked on the city plat map. I bet she paid a buddy's company to do it under the table. I gathered receipts, screenshots, zoomed in photos of the easement stake. I even got a picture of the construction crew ignoring the marker tape. Then I sent it all off in a very polite, very thorough email to the city's code enforcement office, complete with a cherry-on-top subject line, violation of City Ordinance 12.18, unauthorized pool construction. 2 weeks later, chaos. I came home to find Karen in full meltdown mode, screaming at 2 city officials in khakis and polos. Her voice carried down the street. This is harassment. I have a pool party in 2 weeks. You can't make me fill it in. It's my backyard. One of the officials pulled out a folded paper and said calmly, Ma'am, the structure is built over a designated easement. The city has the right to demand removal. Your permit was filed without an accurate site survey. I paid $40,000, she shrieked. Then you might want to contact your contractor, he replied flatly. By the end of the month, the pool was gone, filled in, torn up. What was once Karen's pride and joy was now just a sad square of patchy grass and construction debris. That weekend, I was outside watering our potted plants when Karen stomped over to the fence. You think you're clever? She snapped. I smiled sweetly. Not really, but I do read city ordinances. Did you know sheds are grandfathered in if they've been up since before 2010? Ours went up in 2008. You're a spiteful little bee. Careful, I said, pointing to the camera mounted under our eaves. You're already $40K in the hole. Don't add a harassment charge to the pile. She stormed off, and now every time she takes out the trash or mows the lawn, she has to look at that shed. That completely legal, permit-stamped, tax-assessed shed. Oh, and her husband started putting up a tarp to block the view of our backyard, and that got flagged for code violations too. Go to the nearest art school. Find an artist interested in painting a mural. Tell them you have a few canvases for them to work on. Let them paint a mural of a pool on the side of the shed facing the neighbor's house. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.